What's up, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Boozer here. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully, you guys having a great day today. In today's video, as the thumbnail suggests, Plarium messed things up. But in this case, they messed things up for the benefit of the player base. Now, what exactly am I talking about? I'm talking about this champion here from the Lizardman faction, our most recent character pass champion, the Predator. So the Predator, if you guys have been living under a rock, is catapulted itself into the upper stratosphere of the arena meta. This champion has proven to be a huge threat. The best thing about him is that obviously he is a regular champion. He's not a mythical champion or anything like that. So the resources to build one out is just not as significant. So the big thing about him is going to be his passive. He comes into the fight with a perfect veil, and he comes with this initial 50% chance to evade. So this makes him incredibly hard to kill off on your first attack. So he's good for teams that are going a little bit slower, that that have the ability to soak up the first couple hits in PvP. And then the next crazy thing about him is that his AoE hits super hard. It's a multi-hit AoE as well. And he has this block revive single target attack, which again has proven to be extremely threatening in PvP. He also counterattacks a lot with his A1. So every time he successfully evades, which will probably be a lot, he can counterattack in, and then he can heal himself. And yeah, it's a snowball effect, right? If he kills somebody with his A1, he also gains extra evades. Actually, if he kills anybody, he gains extra percentage chance to evade. And every time he evades, he counterattacks. So it's just, yeah, a crazy snowball effect. And this guy's definitely shaped the meta for PvP rather quickly. So how did Plarium mess it up with this champion, with the Predator? Well, first things first, this champion was a $40 champion pass at the start of November last year. He came as part of a collab with the Alien and Predator franchise. So the Alien, the Xenomorph, was the free champion, and the Predator was the champion pass champion. So for 40 bucks, you had, you could get the Predator, right? So if you're a spender in this game, champion passes for a good champion, generally a pretty good deal. But if you're also a spender in this game, you know that $40 for a champion is an insanely good deal. Good deal. Obviously, $40 relative to other games or relative to what you could spend in real life, in exchange for some pixels, right? People will say that's not a good deal. This thing is super expensive. This is raid. We're normalizing spending and all that. But let's talk about raid and relative cost, right? A champion in this game is super expensive, and we have no guarantee usually of what we get, right? In this case, a champion pass, we know we're getting Predator for 40 bucks. Now, if you're a long-term player of Raid, and if you're a spender in Raid, you know that 40 bucks for a champion is a hell of a deal. And for a champion that is, above average or good is a hell of a deal. And now the Predator is actually a top tier PvP meta champion. That is unheard of for $40. You get one copy of this guy for 40 bucks. His soul was also part of a path event, I believe. So they literally sold this champion for 40 bucks. It's a PvP meta champion. And then they basically allowed his soul to be gotten by anybody that had the resources to get it. It wasn't a winner take all soul or anything like that to limit the amount of players to get his soul. So pretty much right out of the box, you get a 5-star Predator, for what is relatively a low cost in this game for a top tier meta champion. So I would say that's the first mess up for Plarium. And that's obviously a plus for the player base that have the Predator. Personally speaking, I don't have the Predator. I don't spend money in this game, and I didn't pull him from any of the events. So I'm out of luck. I don't have Predator. I'll never get Predator. So be it. But for those that have the Predator, it's a huge win in terms of the relative cost of top tier champions. People chase these top tier champions for thousands of dollars during shard events. But in this case, you get a top tier one for 40 bucks. And this undoubtedly hurts Plarium, because Plarium could easily sell this top tier champion to players that spend in multiple events, get them to, invest money into shards, gamble, spend money and all that. But in this case, 40 bucks, you got it. If you have the resources to go after his soul in that hero's path, you got it. No waiting, right? It's actually kind of crazy when you really think about it. So there's a lot of people out there with the Predator, with, obviously a soul right away. You don't have to wait. It's only been in the game for a couple months. And he brings with him this really frustrating mechanic, this evade mechanic, right? It's very frustrating because whenever he successfully evades anything, he gets a chance to A1. And like I said, this is really frustrating and really threatening, especially when he starts whittling away at your team. And then he comes in with the block revive, which can cause all sorts of problems. This Hunter's Gaze debuff that he brings is also very unique. Right now I think it only comes in the Chimera against the Lion form, but now the Predator has it. And what the Hunter's Gaze does is that it ignores unkillable block damage, all this stuff that can basically save you from, a lot of damage. But now with the Hunter's Gaze, it goes through all that stuff. And yeah, the Predator applies it on an ability that block revives. This is incredibly strong. Like the way to kind of prevent this from happening is obviously having block debuffs. Block debuffs will block the Hunter's Gaze, and then you can kind of damage mitigate your, against this ability to prevent yourself from getting block revived. But like I said, all the evades, the counterattacks, and all that stuff, it's going to make it really hard. And if you build the Predator super slow, you're probably going to run out your Stone Skin, run out some of your buffs. Maybe your teammates will start hitting the other team, softening them up, and then the Predator comes in and then either A2s finishes off everyone or he block revives a key target. Now you put him in Mercurial set and it gets even crazier as well, giving him the ability to have evade, and he has refreshing stacks, which can make him even crazier. So this kind of leads me to the second way that Plarium kind of messed things up for themselves, is that they kind of back themselves into a corner with this ability, this evade ability, which basically completely negates the ability that's coming in. Now the Predator can only have a 60% chance. 60% chance, it seems like a lot. It's already feeling like a lot, and it's impactful enough that, it's going to cause some problems, right? So for Plarium, they have to have they can't really come in here and say, okay, we're going to nerf the Predator now. So they kind of backed themselves in a corner. This was a, sold champion, advertised, sold. People bought it. It's a product or whatever. And they backed themselves into a corner because they have such a crazy mechanic on this guy that they have to find a solution to kind of stop this guy. Because first of all, Plarium doesn't want the player base to have a $40 PvP meta champion. It doesn't make sense because whales will have the Predator for cheap, the first copy. And then they also offer them in Prism events, which are actually cheap in terms of like ultra spender, um, you know, relatively speaking, right? Because when you're chasing certain champions, they can cost a lot of money. But with Prisms, because they're, a dedicated small pool, people would have pulled multiple Predators if you spent the money correctly in those kind of dedicated pools. So Plarium needs to think of a way to kind of um, think of a counter or a better champion or a way to deal with this so that the meta shifts away from the Predator. I feel like they really backed themselves in the corner because they can't really take the nerf route against this champion. So now they have to come up with a champion that is stronger than this or has a way to directly counter this kind of play or play against this kind of champion. Because like I said, they want players to spend money. They want players to shift out of, certain metas and all that stuff. And if the meta is a $40 champion, this directly hurts Plarium. Now, another point where I think that Plarium really messed up is that this champion, he is top tier right now, top tier for meta, for PvP. And the other thing that they really messed up is that this champion no longer exists in the pool. So it's a time limited champion that they have somehow made to be so strong that it's basically included at the top of the PvP meta. Previously, they've never done this. And I think it's good that they don't do this because you don't want time limited champions to be at the top of arena because new players or new whales can't really chase these champions anymore. They have to look for accounts with this old time limited champion. So, like I said, Plarium really backed themselves into a corner here by releasing a time limited champion with a really strong effect that you just can't get anymore. So, even if a whale comes in and they want to whale out for this champion, they can't do it anymore. So, like I said, Plarium backed themselves into a corner. They need to come up with a way to deal with this champion and then obviously sell it as the new meta to the whales out there, right? So this is a pretty big mess up on their part, I think. Obviously, it's a huge bonus for the player base that has the Predator. Obviously, if you're playing against the Predator, it's a bit of a annoying RNG fest. And I can tell you guys that this guy is super strong, and it's very frustrating when you basically throw everything at him. and he survives, and then he one shots everybody, or he block revives your key champion. So yeah, it's very frustrating to play against this guy. But meta's changed. Meta's changed. I'm interested to see what Plarium does in terms of a response to how they're going to deal with the Predator. And lastly, guys, this is probably one of the other big things that they messed up with as well. So I'm going to show you guys, or I'm going to talk about the brand new fusion system. So if you guys didn't know, we have a brand new fusion system or exchange system in this game right now. So you can kind of see here, you go to the current fusion, you can see click or change fusion. So what happens here is you can exchange fusion tokens, and then you can kind of exchange them for champions or past fusions that you never acquired or you don't have on your account. You can kind of see here the different tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, they all cost different tokens. Keep in mind that you can only get tokens from completing hybrid or classic fusion. So any kind of fragment fusions that you complete, you don't get any tokens for. And keep in mind that you have to complete a fusion and then do the change and then exchange all the tokens. So let's say you want a tier 1, it costs 3. You have to do 3. You have to get 3 tokens, and then you have to do one more fusion and then do the change, and then you get the champion. It's not do 3 fusions, get 3 tokens, exchange for 1. It's not like that. So the system is actually very clever because it makes people clever or bad clever. I don't know. It's good clever for Plarium. So they actually thought about it. But basically what happens is that it forces people to do bad fusion. So you get tokens. And then it also forces you to give up one fusion in exchange for the fusion of your choice. So the fusion that you're giving up, you might want later on, in which case you have to try to get again with this token system, right? So it's a very clever system for Plarium to basically keep us on the wheel for a long time. This is a long-term system, guys. It's going to take forever to get a tier 1 champion, just an example, okay? But the big thing about this change fusion champion and how it relates back to the Predator and how it relates to Plarium kind of messing themselves up is that to empower the Predator, it actually takes Pythions. So if you guys don't know how to figure that out, you go to empowerment here. And then for some of the special champions, you have to, basically look at the info tab. They don't exist anymore, right? These time limited champions, for example, like Ninja, it doesn't exist anymore. So you can only empower Ninja with this champion called Noble. And some champions you can only get once, like Lydia, for example, and then you have to empower them with this champion, Visix. All right. So for the Predator, who is time limited, you can't get Predator anymore. Predator will be empowered by Pythion. You can kind of see here, right? So what happens is that Pythion is an old fusion. Pythion is an old fusion, which means he's going to be part of this tier 1 pool. You see here, I have Pythion. I have him on my account. Therefore, I cannot, exchange my tokens for him again. However, if my account does not have Pythion, I can get Pythion with these tokens. So it doesn't matter if I pulled Pythion from a shard. It doesn't matter if I completed his fusion in the past. If I don't have a single Pythion on my account, I can exchange the tokens to get Pythion, and then I can feed Pythion into my Predator. If I had a Predator, I don't have a Predator, but you can do that. And you can basically do this infinitely. You can do this over and over and over again. So eventually, with time, it's going to take a long time, guys. Everybody that has a Predator could theoretically have a +4 Predator. I would say if you're super diligent, you could probably do this in, depending how many hybrid and classic fusions they offer us in a year, you can probably do this within 2 years, I would say, if you're super diligent. Maybe a year and a half if they, offer a little bit more. But I would say probably 2 years. You can get a +4 Predator on your account if you wanted it. So, like I said, how does this all loop back? They release a Predator champion, a top PvP meta champion for $40. Everybody can get them. They release their soul in an event that basically everyone can participate in as long as they have the resources. Everybody gets a top soul for this top meta champion. And then they back themselves into a corner by making it a time limited release champion. And now they have a system where everybody is basically guaranteed. This is a guarantee. With time, this is a guarantee, right? Everybody is guaranteed a +4 top meta champion with a top soul, and it was all available in the game. And technically, they're all guaranteed. They were all guaranteed. As long as you have the resources, you can guarantee yourself those exact resources by doing what was required. And I don't know if Plarium saw that. They don't know. I don't think they saw that. This is definitely feels like a big mistake on their part. Obviously, the players benefit by getting a very low cost top tier meta champion. So Plarium backed themselves in a corner. They need to fix this eventually and shift the meta around this champion. They can't let this champion be the king of the hill for too long, right? So I did get some confirmation about this. So basically, what happens with this fusion system is that as long as you don't have this champion anywhere in your account, you can you can basically get them over and over again by exchanging the tokens. So they can't be in fragment form. That's the thing. So they can't be in fragment form. They can't be in your vault. They can't be anywhere in your account. And then you can get them over and over and over again. Obviously, super long term system here, but it's possible. And these are basically guaranteed, right? At this point. So, like I said, we got this little confirmation here. This is from Plarium. Yes, as long as you don't have the champion either in collection vault, fragment form, fragment tab, right? Summoning portal ready to be summoned, inbox, etc. You should be able to choose it as a fusion replacement. So there you go. That's confirmed. Something for you guys to think about in terms of a long-term thing. Now, the other interesting thing is to look at champions that you can, use this strategy on if you don't have Predator. So that was something that was interesting for me because I don't have Predator myself. Can I use the system to make a +4 super strong champion for myself? So first of all, Ronda, and Cillian the Lucky. So Cillian is actually a champion that is in the fusion token system, and then you can basically +4 your Ronda. I do have a Ronda, and Ronda is a good champion, so I could theoretically throw 4 Cillians into my Ronda. The other champion that could be potentially very good and also uses a fusion token champion would be where is he? Raphael. Raphael uses Cantras. Cantras, they only cost 1. That's the good thing about these champions relative to the Pythions that Predator requires. Ronda and Raphael, they both use champions in the 1 cost category, right? So, for example, you got Cillian the Lucky here. He only costs 1 token. And then you have Raphael with the Cantras, which only cost 1 token. Whereas Pythion costs 3. He costs 3. It's going to be a really long time before people get +4 Predators. So you could theoretically get +4 Raphaels, +4 Rondas way more quickly than you can get a +4 Predator. Obviously, the Predator is going to be top tier, but I'm actually kind of excited to, maybe potentially look at +4 for Raphael. At least there's an option there that I can lean on, potentially. But this is pretty interesting because this means that Plarium has to be extra careful with how they, want to give or, suggest empowering or empowerment champions for whatever champions they have in the future, because they can't offer them as fusions too often because people will use this system to make, empowered versions of that champion, right? And putting, the empowerment champions in the correct tier is probably something that they need to think about as well. It's just getting crazily complicated. And yeah, like I said, I'm not surprised that they never really thought the Predator was going to be like a top tier champion, but now he is. And yeah, like I said, Plarium needs to do something about this eventually because the meta is going to be pretty stale fighting all these +4 highly empowered Predators. He's a non-mythical champion, he's a regular champion, and then he was offered as a time limited, guaranteed champion for $40. Yeah, I think this is a pretty big oversight by Plarium, and it's probably going to hurt them in the dollar books, right? So they got to have something cool and exciting for everybody, so that they can actually spend money in this game. Or I think this guy's gonna be some problems, and I think because he is a time limited champion, they're probably not going to touch his kit. I'd say the chances of them touching his kit is probably like 0%. It's probably 0%. So they definitely need to, shift the meta by releasing something else or releasing, some other way to deal with this, a gear set or another mechanic or something that ignores evade or something weird like that. But anyways, I thought this topic was a little bit interesting. Hopefully you guys thought it was interesting and informative as well. Congratulations if you have the Predator. I'm super jealous. I wish I had this champion. Obviously, he's very, very PvP meta right now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the insight here. If you guys enjoyed the content, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button. It would really, really help me out. Thanks for watching until the end. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.